All right, so we're diving deep into EVs today.
Yeah.
Specifically Tesla and Rivian.
Uh,
We've got this Motley Fool article comparing the two, and I'm already thinking this is going to be a good one.
for sure.
By the end of this, I think you'll have a much better understanding of the two companies, and maybe even some insights into where the entire EV market is headed.
Sound good. I'm ready.
Okay, so first things first, the article wastes no time highlighting just how hot the EV market is.
Yeah.
7% jump in U.S. sales last year.
Right.
That's not something to ignore,
No, it's not.
especially with the economy being kind of shaky lately.
Yeah, that's a clear sign that EVs are moving from, that niche category to something much more mainstream. And what's really interesting to me is that this growth is happening
Yeah,
across the board. It's not just in like the luxury segments.
totally. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
But, I mean, we got to be honest. Tesla has been the king for a while now.
for sure.
The article mentions they have like an impressive 18% of the battery EV market.
Yeah. 18%. Yeah.
I mean,
That's a huge chunk.
that's a big chunk.
That's a really big chunk of the market. But as the article also points out,
Yeah.
their dominance is being challenged
Okay.
in a big way.
This is where it gets interesting.
This is where it gets interesting.
Right. Everyone wants a piece of that EV pie now.
Exactly. We're seeing, the big guys, the established players like
Yeah.
Volkswagen and GM,
Yeah.
they're really ramping up their EV production lines.
Right.
And then you've got, a
A
whole new wave of startups
the comers.
like Rivian and Lucid and NIO,
Oh, yeah.
all competing for that same market share.
Okay, so how is Tesla responding to all this new competition?
Yeah.
The article digs into their strengths, and it's no surprise that their experience and their size give them a pretty significant edge.
Yeah.
They weathered those rising material costs
Yeah, they did.
and all those supply chain issues
Yeah.
better than a lot of these smaller companies could.
Absolutely. A big part of that is their vertical integration strategy.
Okay, I'm not going to lie.
Sure.
When I hear that, I kind of zone out a little.
I understand.
Can you break that down for me?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Basically, Tesla controls a much larger portion of its supply chain
Okay.
compared to traditional automakers.
Okay.
So they're producing these key components,
Yeah.
in-house things like batteries and software.
Yeah.
So that lets them manage costs more effectively.
Okay.
They can reduce their reliance on third parties
Yeah.
and react more quickly to like disruptions and things like that.
So it's almost like they're building their own little world,
Yes, exactly.
and that gives them more control.
More control.
Okay, I get it. That's actually pretty smart.
It's a really smart strategy.
But the article doesn't shy away from some of Tesla's weaknesses either.
No, they don't.
I mean, their model lineup is starting to feel a little bit, well,
A little bit baited.
dated. I was going to say
Stale, I guess.
stale.
Yeah.
Well, stale. A little stale, and that more affordable model that everybody's been waiting for,
Right.
still no sign of it, even though Elon keeps kind of hinching at it.
I think that's a valid concern.
Yeah.
Consumers have more choices now than ever before.
Right?
And brand loyalty, it only goes so far.
For sure.
If Tesla doesn't refresh what they're offering and appeal to a broader market
Yeah.
with maybe some better pricing, they could lose some ground to these other companies.
Yeah, especially when you consider that these other companies like Rivian,
Right.
they are targeting that
Exactly.
missing piece
Exactly.
with their more affordable models.
That's a good point. But before we get into Rivian,
Okay.
let's look at some of the other areas where Tesla could grow.
Okay.
The article highlights their move into autonomous driving
Yeah.
with things like the Robotaxi program
Right.
and that planned ride-hailing service.
That was so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
It's projected to be worth like $480 billion
It's a huge market.
by 2032.
It's a massive market.
Are we really on the cusp of this robo-taxi revolution?
It's definitely a market with enormous potential.
Yeah.
And it's not just Tesla that's doing it.
Right.
You've got companies like Waymo,
Yeah.
Cruise, and even Apple
Well,
are pouring billions of dollars into this
okay.
technology.
So Tesla's got strengths,
Yeah.
they've got weaknesses,
Uh-huh.
and the future
Yep.
is uncertain.
Uncertain, as always.
As always.
But even with all that potential,
Right.
Tesla's recent fourth quarter results were,
Yeah.
well, they were a little underwhelming.
A little bit.
2% sales growth,
Yeah.
8% dip in revenue.
Not great.
That's not what investors want to see.
No.
And the article blames it on reduced average selling prices across all their models.
Yeah.
So what's the story there?
Well, it could be a strategic move,
Yeah.
to try to boost demand
Okay.
and keep that market share
Okay.
in the face of all this new competition.
Right.
But it's also got some analysts worried.
That maybe demand for Tesla's vehicles is starting to soften.
Okay, interesting. So Tesla's got its stuff.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch gears now and talk about this other company, Rivian.
Sounds good. They're definitely a company to watch.
They're making a lot of noise.
They are.
And not just in the EV community, but like car enthusiasts in general.
For sure.
The article points out that their vehicles have impressed both customers and major auto giants.
Yeah. They've created a lot of buzz
Yeah.
with this combination of like rugged capability,
Yeah.
luxury features,
Yeah.
and innovative design.
Yeah. And they've kind of nailed what a lot of these other EV makers are struggling with.
What's that?
That is building a car that feels both adventurous,
Yeah.
but also sophisticated.
They do a good job of that.
And get this, they topped Consumer Reports' owner satisfaction list,
Wow.
not just for EVs,
For all cars.
but for all car brands.
That's impressive.
It's pretty impressive for a new company.
It is, and it really speaks volumes about the quality and the appeal of what they're doing.
Right.
They've clearly tapped into something that customers really want.
And that appeal has attracted some big names.
It has.
Volkswagen and Amazon both invested
Big money.
heavily in Rivian.
Yeah.
What do you think is driving that confidence?
Well, for one, they've got a strong leadership team
Okay.
with a clear vision for the future of EVs.
Okay.
And they're also going after a segment of the market that's currently underserved.
Oh, interesting.
And venture-oriented EVs that can handle both on-road and off-road driving.
So they're hitting that sweet spot between
Yeah.
practicality
Yes.
and excitement.
Exactly. It's not just about being green.
Right.
It's about, having fun while you're doing it.
Yeah. And their strategic partnership with Amazon,
Huge.
especially with Amazon wanting to electrify their delivery fleet.
Right.
I mean, that gives them a big advantage, I think, in terms of scale and distribution.
Absolutely. It's a really smart move on their part.
Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. The article does point out some of Rivian's challenges.
Yeah, it's not all smooth sailing.
Their vehicle production actually went down
Oh, well.
by 13.5% in 2024.
Okay.
Now, I know they've been dealing with those supply chain issues.
Right.
That's plagued the entire industry.
Yeah, component shortages have impacted them,
Yeah.
just like everyone else.
Okay, but even with those production hiccups, deliveries actually went up 3%.
Interesting.
So how do we make sense of those two?
Yeah, how do you reconcile those numbers?
Yeah.
Well, it looks like they're prioritizing fulfilling existing orders
Okay.
over just ramping up production.
Okay.
They're focusing on meeting the commitments they've made
Got it.
to customers that have already placed orders,
Okay.
which in the long run is a really smart move
It is.
for building brand loyalty.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how does Rivian's path to profitability look?
Yeah.
The article suggests they might actually hit a gross profit in Q4.
Wow.
Are they on track to becoming a major player? Or is that just wishful thinking?
They've been making some strategic moves,
Yeah.
streamlining their operations and cutting costs.
Okay.
They're really focused on improving their manufacturing efficiency,
Okay.
optimizing their supply chain, even redesigning some components
Yeah?
to reduce those material expenses.
Okay, so that sounds pretty promising.
It does.
What else does Rivian have planned? The article mentions some exciting new releases, a smaller R2 SUV in 2026,
Okay.
and then an even smaller R3 crossover.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, those new models are generating a lot of buzz,
I bet.
especially that R2 starting at $45,000.
Wow.
It could be a game changer.
That's a lot more accessible
Right.
than their current models.
Way more affordable.
It opens them up to a whole new market.
Exactly. And then there's that joint venture with Volkswagen,
Oh, yeah.
which is a pretty big deal.
It's huge.
And it's not just about the financial boost.
Right.
Volkswagen is actually going to be using Rivian's technology and platform for their future EVs.
Wow, that's a huge vote of confidence
Yeah.
in Rivian's tech.
And it highlights a really key difference in their approach compared to Tesla.
In what way?
Well, Tesla's all about doing it themselves, that
Mhm.
vertical integration.
Right.
But Rivian is all about collaboration and strategic partnerships.
Interesting.
So it's like two different philosophies
Two different ways.
on how to win the EV race.
Yeah.
Tesla's building a wall,
Building a wall.
and Rivian's building bridges.
Building bridges. I like that.
All right, so we've got these two very different companies, both trying to carve out their own space in this rapidly evolving EV landscape. The article makes a point of saying that comparing them directly,
Yeah.
it's kind of like comparing apples and oranges.
It's a good point. They're at very different stages.
Yeah. Tesla has established proven track record, market leader,
Yeah.
Rivian up-and-comer,
Yeah.
Tons of potential.
Lots of potential.
But also more inherent risk.
More risk, for sure.
Okay, so Tesla's got that been there, done that factor.
Yeah.
While Rivian has that exciting...
What's next?
What's next? Energy.
That energy.
Okay, so let's get into the financials.
All right.
Starting with Tesla.
Yeah.
Their share price has surged 100% in the last 12 months.
100%.
Wow. Investors must be happy about that.
I'm sure they are.
But the article points out that their forward price to earnings ratio is 115.
Which is high.
Hold on. Can you explain that?
Sure.
For those of us who don't speak Wall Street.
Yeah, the price to earnings ratio, it's just a way to measure how much investors are willing to pay for each dollar of a company's earnings.
Okay.
A high PE ratio like Tesla has indicates that investors are very optimistic about their future earnings.
Okay.
So they're willing to pay a premium for the stock.
Okay.
However, it also means that the stock price is very sensitive.
Got it.
To any disappointments or slower than expected growth.
So it's a double-edged sword.
It is.
High PE ratio.
High risk, high reward.
High risk, high reward.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it. So where does Rivian stand in terms of investment risk?
Rivian's definitely more speculative at this stage.
Yeah.
They're still figuring things out.
Right.
Scaling their production.
Yeah.
Managing those costs.
Yeah.
And ultimately, achieving profitability consistently.
Okay. So more of a high risk.
Potentially
high reward.
Scenario.
Yes.
Okay. But they also have a lot going for them.
They do.
They've got a strong brand, passionate customer base, a management team that seems to be really focused on execution.
Right.
And those valuable strategic partnerships we talked about.
They're well positioned.
They are. So Tesla's the proven but potentially overvalued option.
Yeah.
And Rivian is the riskier but potentially more rewarding bet.
It's a tough choice.
It is the classic investor's dilemma.
It is.
Play it safe.
Or swing for the fences.
Swing for the fences, exactly.
Before we move on, I think it's important to zoom out a little bit.
Okay.
And look beyond these two companies.
Right.
What are some of the broader trends that could shape the future of the entire EV market?
That's a great question.
Regardless of who comes out on top.
I think a really important factor
is
the continued development of battery technology.
Okay.
Battery costs, range charging speeds.
Yeah.
Those are all crucial factors that will affect whether people buy EVs or not.
For sure.
Breakthroughs in battery tech could be a total game changer.
I mean, it seems like battery tech is the holy grail of this whole...
Early as EV revolution.
More efficient, affordable, sustainable batteries would make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Lower the cost of EVs, increase how far they can go on a charge, reduce charging times.
Right.
That would make them much more appealing to a lot more people.
Totally. Another factor I'm thinking about is government policy.
Yeah.
We're seeing some countries
already implementing these incentives and regulations to try to push people towards EVs. How much of an impact do you think these policies will have?
Government policies are really powerful.
Yeah.
They can really drive change.
Okay.
Things like tax credits, subsidies, emissions regulations, investments in charging stations.
Right.
Those can all create really strong incentives.
Interesting.
For both car makers and consumers to embrace EVs.
So governments could actually play a key role in accelerating this whole thing.
Yeah. We're already seeing it happen in a lot of places.
Where?
Well, for example, in Europe, several countries have announced plans to ban the sale of new gas and diesel cars.
Really?
Within the next decade or two.
That's a big step.
It's a huge move.
So it seems like the writing's on the wall.
The transition won't happen overnight.
Yeah.
But things are definitely shifting towards electric.
Okay. But even with government support and all these advancements in tech, there are still some big hurdles to overcome.
There are.
We talked about charging infrastructure.
Right.
What about the raw materials needed to make these batteries?
Yeah.
I've read some things about ethical sourcing practices and potential vulnerabilities in the supply chain.
You're right. The ethical and environmental implications of sourcing things like lithium and cobalt and nickel are really important to consider.
Yeah.
We need to make sure these materials are mined and processed responsibly.
Yeah.
Minimizing environmental damage and making sure that human rights are respected throughout the process.
It seems like there's a lot more to this whole thing than just the cars themselves.
It's a whole ecosystem that needs to evolve.
All right, let's take a short break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we'll jump back into those articles and see if there's any other nuggets of wisdom we can pull out.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned.
All right. It's a really exciting time to be following this whole industry.
It is.
So much is happening, and the pace of change is just incredible.
Yeah. And speaking of change, let's circle back to Tesla and Rivian for a sec.
Okay.
One thing that stood out to me in the article was how different their approaches to manufacturing are.
Right.
Tesla seems to be all about vertical integration.
Yeah.
Like, they want to control every single step of the process. But Rivian's taking a more collaborative approach.
Yeah.
Partnering with companies like Amazon and Volkswagen.
Interesting. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. What do you think about those two different approaches?
Well, both approaches have their pros and cons.
Okay.
You know, Tesla's vertical integration gives them tighter control over their supply chain.
Yeah.
Which can be a huge advantage in terms of efficiency and cost control.
Right.
But it's also a really capital-intensive approach.
Yeah.
It requires massive upfront investments in factories and infrastructure.
So Tesla's betting big on themselves.
They are.
But Rivian's kind of spreading that risk around a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rivian's partnership strategy lets them use the expertise and resources of these more established companies, which reduces their own spending and could potentially help them grow faster.
Okay, but doesn't that mean they're giving up some control?
It's a trade-off, for sure.
Yeah.
Partnering can be a great way to get access to technology, manufacturing capabilities, distribution networks, things that would be really hard or expensive to build on your own.
Yeah.
But it also means sharing the profits.
Right.
And maybe having to compromise on certain decisions.
So it's like choosing between going solo or joining a band.
I like that.
Each has its own challenges and rewards.
Yeah, it's a great analogy.
And just like in the music industry, there's no right answer.
No one size fits all.
The best approach depends on the situation, the company's goals, the competition.
Exactly.
The article also talks about Tesla's focus on software and technology, especially autopilot and all that full self-driving stuff.
Yeah.
Is Rivian even trying to compete with that?
Well, they're definitely investing in advanced driver assistance systems and autonomous technology, but their main focus seems to be on building vehicles that appeal to a specific type of customer.
Okay.
They're going after the adventure and outdoor enthusiast market.
Okay.
They're emphasizing durability, off-road capability, a connection to nature, that kind of thing.
Right, which makes sense considering they're working with Amazon on those electric delivery vans.
Yeah.
It seems like they're really going after those niche markets with specialized vehicles.
Yeah, good strategy.
Okay, so if you were an investor looking at these two companies, which way would you lean?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
It really comes down to your own personal goals, your risk tolerance, and how much you believe in each company's long-term vision.
Okay, so no easy answers.
Yep.
Let's say I'm a pretty risk-averse investor. I like stability and a proven track record.
Got it.
What are the key things I should be considering when I'm looking at Tesla?
Well, Tesla's definitely the safer bet. They're more established.
Yeah.
They're the market leader.
Right.
They've got a history of innovation. They've proven they can build great cars and make money.
Yeah.
But because they're valued so highly, a lot of that future growth is already baked into the stock price.
Okay.
Any little hiccup in their execution or a slowdown in the EV market could really hurt their stock price.
So it's kind of a buy high, sell higher situation?
You could say that investors buying Tesla today are betting that they'll keep growing at this really fast pace and exceed those already high expectations.
Okay, and what about Rivian?
What about them?
What should a more adventurous investor be looking for there?
Well, Rivian's a much younger company.
Right.
They haven't been around as long, but they have huge potential.
Okay.
They're targeting a part of the EV market that's growing really quickly. And their partnerships give them access to a lot of resources and expertise. But they're still in the early stages of figuring out how to scale their production and proving that their business model works.
Right.
Investing in Rivian is a bet on their ability to execute their vision and navigate the challenges of this market.
So Tesla's the proven but potentially overvalued option.
Yeah.
And Rivian's the riskier but potentially more rewarding bet.
Yeah.
It's a tough choice.
It's interesting.
But let's shift gears for a minute and look beyond just these two companies.
Sure.
What are some of the broader trends and factors that could shape the whole EV market regardless of who wins?
That's a good question.
Right.
I think one of the most important things to think about is the development of battery technology.
Okay.
Battery cost, range, charging speed. Those are all crucial factors for consumers.
Right.
Breakthroughs in battery tech could completely change the game for the whole industry.
It really seems like battery tech is the holy grail of this whole EV revolution.
It really is. More efficient, affordable, and sustainable batteries
Yeah.
would make a huge difference. They'd lower the cost of EVs, increase the range, and reduce charging times,
Right.
which would make them a much more appealing option for a lot of people.
Okay, another factor that comes to mind is government policy.
Huh?
We've seen several countries implementing incentives and regulations to encourage EV adoption. How much of an impact do you think those policies will have?
Government policies can be really effective.
Okay.
Things like tax credits, subsidies, emissions regulations, and investments in charging infrastructure can really push both automakers and consumers towards EVs.
So governments could play a key role in accelerating this shift.
Absolutely. And we're seeing it happen in many parts of the world.
Yeah, like where?
For example, in Europe, several countries have announced plans to ban the sale of new gasoline and diesel cars in the next decade or two.
Yeah, that's a bold move.
It is, but it shows how seriously they're taking the transition to electric vehicles.
Yeah, it seems like the writing's on the wall for gas-powered cars.
It does.
But the transition won't happen overnight.
No, it'll take time.
Okay, even with government support and all these advancements in technology, there are still challenges.
Of course.
We've already talked about charging infrastructure, but what about the raw materials needed for these batteries?
Right.
There are concerns about sourcing those materials ethically and ensuring a stable supply chain.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The ethical and environmental impact of sourcing those materials, things like lithium, cobalt, nickel, the really important considerations.
Yeah.
We need to make sure these materials are mined and processed responsibly, minimizing environmental damage and respecting human rights throughout the supply chain.
It seems like we need a more holistic approach to this whole thing.
We do.
One that considers not just the technology and the economics, but also the social and environmental impact.
Absolutely. The transition to electric mobility needs to be a just and sustainable one.
It does. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So we've got this huge technological shift happening, government policies pushing us forward, and consumers are starting to embrace the idea of electric vehicles.
They are.
But there are challenges, complexities, and ethical considerations to address.
There are a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot more to unpack here.
For sure.
It really is. There's a lot to consider, but I think it's pretty clear that this whole EV revolution is gaining some serious momentum.
Yeah, it is.
And Tesla and Rivian are definitely leading the charge.
Yeah, they're at the forefront, for sure.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on a couple more things from the articles that I thought were interesting. Like, it mentions Tesla's just relentless focus on technology innovation, autonomous driving, artificial intelligence, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Is Rivian even trying to keep up with them on that front, or are they focusing on something else?
Well, Rivian is definitely investing in some of those areas.
Okay.
Like driver assistance systems.
Yeah.
And they're looking into autonomous driving tech.
Okay.
But their main focus right now seems to be a different kind of innovation.
No. Okay, what do you mean?
Well, they're focusing on building vehicles that are really rugged, adventurous, and designed for a very specific customer.
Okay.
Somebody who values durability, off-road capability, that connection with the outdoors.
So it's less about, like, being the first one to get to fully self-driving cars, and more about, like, creating a unique driving experience for a specific type of person.
And it's working for them. Their vehicles are getting great reviews.
Yeah.
For that blend of performance and luxury and, you know, being eco-friendly.
Yeah.
They've captured the attention of people who want something different.
It's almost like they're creating a whole new category within EVs that appeals to that sense of adventure.
That desire to explore.
That's smart.
It is. It helps them stand out in a crowded market.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to be like Tesla, they're doing their own thing and building a loyal fan base based on a totally different set of values and a unique product.
It's like that old saying, find a need and fill it.
Exactly.
And Rivian found a need that these other EV makers weren't filling.
They did?
And they're taking advantage of that.
Yeah. And that's a really good lesson for anybody who's trying to start a business.
Yeah.
Or, you know, anybody who's investing.
Yeah.
It's not always about being the biggest or the flashiest.
Right.
It's about finding a way to be different.
Yeah.
And giving people something that they really want.
Okay, so as we wrap up this whole deep dive into Tesla and Rivian,
what
are some of the key things you want our listeners to remember?
Well, the EV market is constantly changing. It's full of potential, and it's really exciting.
It is.
Tesla is still a major player. Yeah. They've got a strong brand, amazing technology, and a really ambitious vision.
Right.
But Rivian is coming up fast.
Yeah.
They're focused on adventure, sustainability, and they've got these really important partnerships.
It's like watching a race.
It is.
To see who comes out on top.
It is. And for investors, the important thing is to stay informed.
Yeah.
Understand the risks and the opportunities. And make decisions that match their own goals and how much risk they're comfortable with.
That's great advice. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of it all.
It is.
But it's important to remember that this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Absolutely. And just like running a marathon. Yeah. You got to be prepared, be patient, and understand what you're getting yourself into.
Well said. I think that's a great place to end this deep dive.
I think so, too.
We've covered a lot today.
We have.
Tesla, Rivian, all the big trends in EVs, and where the future of transportation might be headed.
I hope our listeners feel informed, energized, and ready to keep learning about this industry.
Me too. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and until next time, keep those wheels turning.
See ya.